Imagine divorcing your husband because you think he's poor, and then discovering he was secretly the heir to $500 million. That's what happened to Rachel, and her life turned into a nightmare she could never escape. This isn't just a story of betrayal. It's about what happens when greed blinds love and karma shows no mercy. Rachel and Ethan had been married for 8 years. They met at a cafe when Ethan was working as a mechanic, fixing cars for a living. He was gentle, hardworking, and humble, the kind of man who would rather fix something than replace it. Rachel loved that at first. But as years passed and her friends started marrying wealthier men, her patience began to fade. She started comparing their lives to others, the luxury houses, the designer bags, the vacations. Ethan worked late nights, saving every penny to one day buy a home. But to Rachel, that wasn't enough. "Ethan," she said one night, "I'm tired of waiting." "You'll never be more than this." He smiled softly and replied, "I just need a little more time, Rachel. I promise I'm building something for us." But she didn't want to wait. She wanted instant success and not dreams. So when her old college friend introduced her to Adam, a wealthy businessman, she saw an opportunity. Adam showered her with gifts, took her to fancy dinners, and made her feel like she finally belonged somewhere better. Soon after, she filed for divorce. Ethan didn't argue. He simply said, "If that's what makes you happy, I won't stop you." He signed the papers quietly, leaving her everything they owned, the car, the apartment, even his small savings. "You'll need it more than I do," he said softly and walked away. Rachel laughed at his noble act. To her, he was just a broke man trying to look like a hero. Within a few months, she married Adam and moved into a mansion, convinced she had made the right choice. But what she didn't know was that her life was about to unravel, piece by piece. 5 years passed. Adam's business began to crumble after a series of bad investments. He turned cold, distant, and eventually left Rachel for a younger woman. She lost everything: her home, her jewelry, and even her pride. Broke and desperate, she started working at a local boutique just to survive. One afternoon, while arranging clothes, she overheard 2 women talking. "Did you hear about the new tech billionaire?" one said. "Ethan Miller. He inherited $500 million from his father's company. Apparently he used to live around here before he moved abroad." Rachel froze. The name hit her like lightning. Ethan Miller, her ex-husband. Her hands trembled as she looked up the news on her phone. There he was, the same kind, humble man she once dismissed, dressed in a sharp suit, smiling confidently as cameras flashed around him. The headline read, "The Mechanic Who Became a Billionaire." She couldn't breathe. Her knees weakened. She whispered, "No, it can't be." Turns out Ethan's father had secretly owned a global tech empire. Ethan never told anyone because his father wanted him to live humbly, to understand real life before inheriting the company. He wanted to marry someone who loved him for his heart, not his wealth. Rachel felt her chest tighten as memories flooded back. His words, his patience, his quiet strength. She had thrown away the one man who truly loved her because she was blinded by greed. Determined to see him again, she attended a charity gala weeks later after learning he'd be there. She wore her best borrowed dress, fixed her hair, and rehearsed what she'd say. When Ethan walked in, surrounded by business leaders and reporters, Rachel's eyes welled up. She approached him hesitantly and said, "Ethan, it's been a long time." He looked at her for a moment, his expression unreadable, then smiled politely. "Rachel," he said calmly, "how have you been?" I made mistakes," she stammered. "I didn't know who you really were. If I could go back—" He interrupted gently. "Rachel, I'm exactly who I was back then, just with more zeros in my bank account. The only difference is, now I know who deserves to stand beside me." Her eyes filled with tears as he excused himself and walked away to greet his fiancée, a woman who had stood by him through everything. Rachel watched as the crowd surrounded them, cheering and clapping. When the couple left, she sat alone at the empty table, staring at the champagne glass in front of her. For the first time, she realized she hadn't lost money. She had lost love, Real, unconditional love. Months later, Ethan announced his engagement on national television. Rachel watched it from her small apartment, whispering, "That could have been me." But deep down, she knew it couldn't. Because love built on greed will always collapse. And when it does, you're left with nothing but regret. If you liked the video, please subscribe and turn on notifications.